Welcome to Living with Annietude pop-up show on Thursday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited for my guest in the show I'm not introducing him because honestly, we just talked about this. And if you don't know who he is, then there's a real problem going on. And you need to go back and figure out who the LinkedIn influencers are. So here is my awesome guest, Joel Lalgee. How are you, my dear?
Annie, I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited to be here and talk to you and have this awesome spontaneous pop-up that everybody's going to come check it in and seeing how you are and seeing what's going on with you. Although we were just having a talk and we were talking about life right now and how we're both doing so much. And we were talking about how, I said to you, I don't really know any other way to do this. And you kind of feel the same way, like
100%. I feel like everybody I know on LinkedIn they're doing a podcast, they're doing a live stream, they're doing things on Instagram. I just talked to Tim like 2 seconds ago right before this call. So I feel like as a community, we all come together and everybody's pushing, everybody's doing so many different things. Yeah. And it can feel like everybody's doing it, but that's just because we're just so into this LinkedIn community.
We are.
But we're just, I love it. We drive each other. We keep each other accountable. And I really feel like we celebrate each other. Like when someone else comes out with a podcast, we're not like, oh, that guy's competing against me. We're like, yes, that's awesome. That's what this is about.
100%. Like it doesn't, like that's one of the things I think you bring up such a good point about like competition, like the LinkedIn community that like our network that we're both in together and that we've formed and that has been formed around us is so tight knit. Like I don't feel anything but support. Like I feel the same way. Podcasts or anyone doing talent or anything along those lines that I am involved in, I feel completely supported and like so much warmth and energy from our, I act like it's like my world. Like I'm like, Annie, there's like a whole other world out there, but I don't pay attention to it.
Then you talk to someone on the street and you're like, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. They're like, what is LinkedIn? Isn't that just what my resume is?
Do you know those people? I'm like, they're some of my best friends. They're like, have you met them? I'm like, no, I haven't met them.
I love it.
It's such an awesome place and space to be growing and being your best self and sort of evolving. I am finding It's been a real transformation for me the last like year, I would say, especially the last 6 months. How about you? What are you up to?
So I know I made the announcement about a month ago. I started my own company and I'm still in the talent space, but now kind of morphing into helping basically talent leaders and agency owners, so recruitment agency owners like Scott, who is doing a phenomenal job already. So he doesn't need any help from me, but really just trying to help people to get to like where Scott is on LinkedIn. So somebody who's putting out content, is influencing online, is really making a great name for recruiting. And it's really just come out of the fact that, we know when we look on LinkedIn, there's so many posts that are like, dear hiring manager or dear recruiters, quit ghosting us. And I was talking about it earlier with someone. It's like the recruitment name is so bad, but most of the recruiters I've worked with, in fact, a high percentage of them are great people. So I'm like, where's the disconnect? And it really just comes down to like the fact that in our industry, it's all sales and there's no marketing. And as we kind of start to bridge that gap, I think this is the same for a lot of industries, but I think we're just going to see sales professionals be like marketing and sales, and content gives us a great base for that. So my goal is to help recruitment agency owners and recruitment leaders just really find their story and figure out who they are, help them communicate that. And let's just, I say rebrand the headhunter is basically what it is. So
I love it.
They're like, oh yeah, you're a recruiter? I want to go. Exactly.
And it brings an element of authenticity into what we're trying to do, which is truly, when you work in talent, I mean, you're trying to both sides, for at least with me, it's something new. Like there's recruiting and then there's also like, talent strategy and retention and onboarding and acquisition and things like that. And just like, we're doing the best for the people, like truly people over everything is what, our mantra. 100%. So it brings definitely like an element of that authenticity and like, you can be yourself. You're not just like this used salesman type, role that has the bad reputation, right?
100%. And I think that's that's what's kind of been missing in the industry a lot. And I think we're coming out of that, where there's a lot more companies that are started that maybe have a different billing model, or they have more of a partnership mentality. And, I run a live show as well. And a lot of the leaders I get on that live show are just recruitment leaders that they have a different mentality when it comes. Mm-hmm. It's not just all about the bottom line. How much are we billing? The billing is always going to come when you put the relationship and you do a really good job. I think where the disconnect is when the billing becomes more important than what's going on with the clients, and you lose that partnership. And I think companies now, it's like they've got tight budgets. They got tight budgets for recruiting, and so they're not necessarily looking for that just random placement. They're looking to work with a team that's going to really help them, like you said, with the overall strategy. And maybe that is filling a position, but maybe it's sometimes helping out with retention or helping out with employee development, and like how do we, or even employer branding, I think is just going to become more and more relevant. And that's the age that we live in. I don't believe we can do business the same coming into 2020 as we can leaving 2020. And
absolutely not. And it all comes back to the thread in what you're saying is connection. It all comes back to connection and creating a connection and creating sort of that relationship and that strong sort of bond. It's not so much, find me somebody, you throw them in the position and, it's called a day and here's your fee. There's definitely more of a connection. And that's what I have found in this pandemic, and then hopefully the post-pandemic, is that, forming those connections are so important. Again, back to that authenticity piece.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that the content, like what we do on LinkedIn, everybody has a different kind of reason of like how they started and how they got into it. But most people I talk to, it's kind of like recruiting. Like you kind of fall into creating content and then you discover how much fun it is. And you don't have like really a motive other than wanting to create an impact and wanting to connect with people. Yes. And I think that's the heart of everything that we do in recruiting. It's like nobody kind of wakes up and goes, I want to be a recruiter, but you fall in love with the process of connecting with people, connecting with the candidates. And that's the truth of it. I honestly, in my time in recruiting, I haven't run into too many recruiters that are like really bad people. It's always really good people, but I wonder then why is it that we hear all these negative stories? And I think it's basically connecting people with themselves, but then allowing them to connect with that audience. So we start to just change the industry. And that's really my goal. And I think that's, companies like Something New. I mean, that's what you guys are about. It's like, you're not just doing undercover, but you guys have done a great job on LinkedIn and on different social channels of really showing that you care for people. And, I would use basically you guys as a model and say, hey, let's get every recruiting company that's doing something great. Let's have them all have that same strategy. But for a lot of people, it's coaching them into that mindset and saying, okay, you do actually have value to bring. You just need to break out of that fear of LinkedIn. You need to start bringing these things forward. And that's how we change the industry. And that's how I think communication changes. People start being more accountable. Better partnerships are formed, all of the above.
Relationships, connection, all of that. So it's interesting that you noted a couple times about your people's why. What's the real reason behind why we're doing what we're doing? And so I put it out there to the public, but Scott and I are starting a new show on tomorrow, actually at 12:15. Called Something New Live, The Why, because we're going to talk about sort of where it started and the real why behind it. Not so much, all of the good that Something New does. It's totally that, but it's really about what does people over everything really mean? Because I think that there's like definitely a soft and fluffy perception, and people are important. They're the most important. That's our whole goal of getting that across. But there's definitely more to running a company, and there's more to what it takes in strategy, like you said, in talent strategy and that, acquisition and onboarding and retention. And we definitely are going to talk about sort of that why. So I wanted to kind of bring that back to you. And first of all, how did you know that you wanted to go off on your own? And secondly, is that sort of woven into your why?
Yeah, I mean when I actually started in talent, I worked for a company that's pretty similar to something new in terms of their vision and their value. And it's a company called Titus Talent, and they have a very innovative billing model that they use with clients, and they're all about predictive index and like really figuring out like who is the right fit and who's the right culture fit. And so I came into the recruiting industry with a very different mindset right from the get-go. And I started with them. They were a smaller company, and they just grew. And then sometimes when a company grows, you just lose that. You change, they change. And I personally, I like love the startup feel, and I just love that feel. And so as they grew, it was just like, okay, I need to kind of maybe change my own direction. I need to go do something different. And so during probably the last 6 months of working at Titus, I got really involved in LinkedIn and just a lot of content creation. I just had a vision for recruiters basically being able to create inbound leads, create connection with candidates, with clients using LinkedIn. And I also saw it as a great way to actually make an impact and actually influence people. And when I say influence, it's not even influence, it's just connect with them and impact them. And it started off with just putting some posts out, and then I get messages from people randomly saying, hey man, that post was like, it was inspiring, and that was inspiring to me. And I think the more that happened, it was just like a light was going off, and I was like, wow, this is what social media, this is a part about social media that's actually good.
Not bad.
And so after 6 months, after I started doing that for 6 months, I think I just started hanging out with so many solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, so many people that were starting things. It was almost an inevitability I was going to go off solo. And I spent a couple of months at a recruitment agency, and it was right as COVID-19 hit. So there was it wasn't really like the best time to really make a switch, but I didn't know COVID was coming. And so I spent about 6 months just doing full desk recruiting. And I think just seeing that model and seeing how things worked, I was like, you know what, this is just reinforcing what I already kind of believe, which is, recruiters, if they put out content, if we share who we are, we can actually start winning business, and we can get away from this kind of burnout grind world.
Yep.
Because that's the sad thing, is like, I don't think people understand. It's like, so there's a lot of people who are in the recruiting industry for 20 years and they're killing it and they're doing great, but they've got super long relationships that were around before the internet. They were around they were around when it was just the phone. So they built these strong book of businesses, and they just kind of ride on that, and that's perfect. But for people coming into our industry, it's so stressful. It's so much work. There's so much negativity. There's so much just like burn and churn. There's no way to really learn. It's basically, we'll train you up and we'll throw you into the
wolves. There's no substance. There's no like depth.
There isn't, and it makes sense, because how we make money as recruiters is typically filling roles, and it's commission. So that's just how, when the world's created on commission, that's the environment that's going to happen. It's the same with financial advisors. It's like anything for the first 5 years it's a nightmare. So, but I have a different vision, and I go, you know what? We have these tools in front of us. We have these really powerful tools, and a lot of people coming into the industry, they're probably pretty good with social media. They're good with marketing, and they understand how these things work. So why not use social media as a way to extend yourself out there? And instead of, just hitting the call, and doing 80 calls a day that are just cold calls,
making those connects and getting those people on the phone. Yeah.
The dialing and smiling. Why not put yourself out there and start setting yourself up with some warm calls and start getting some thought leadership, some influence. And on top of that, just being yourself. Why not put that out there and use that to start attracting people in? And I think the cool thing with content is it's like, the more you do it, the more you inspire yourself as well. And it's like, it's just a great thing to do. And it's a great way to express yourself. And so now that's my mission. It's just help people break that mindset of fear and help them understand the creative process and really just start using content to create business, new business channels, basically.
So we have some comments here. Mike Paterano said, great conversation, overwhelmingly inspiring conversation about messaging, helping to rebrand an industry that is desperately needed to people. First way of doing things, living with Annietude. cute. And then Thurston said, don't forget about the tools within you. That's so true. And that's what we're trying to do is like, I was just thinking about when you were talking, I was thinking about how it's really just a complete mindset shift. It's like it's changing the way that you view things and the way your perspective, like we're actually trying to impact the world and help people. And in doing that, we help and heal ourselves. If you think about it.
100%. And I think it's funny, like saying about the tools within you, because it's like, I think that's what's happened to me even over the past year is I was just in such a rut. And like, even working for the company I worked for, I got into a rut of the same thing. And it was like, I was kind of asking, like, what else is there? Like, I'm passionate about this, but there's got to be something else. And it wasn't until I started creating content that those things started to come. So it is like, it's those tools within you. It was like suddenly, wow, I have stories to share that matter and can impact.
That matter. I have a voice,
Everybody has that. Everybody. I don't like, I think sometimes people look at like LinkedIn and or any kind of content creators, and you look at these like images or you look at these stories, and it's easy to like disconnect from it and just be like, oh, that person's special in some way. But the reality is everybody has these stories. Everybody has value. And I think a lot of times we discredit our own thoughts because we just think, oh, well, I know that, so everybody knows that. Yeah. But there's like simple things that you have, which you can share with people and make an impact. And so what I'm finding though is like, as I'm working with people, is like some people I work with, like I start showing them the creative process of how to do content, and suddenly they're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, it's so much fun. And other people are like, oh man, this is still so overwhelming. I probably need your help longer term. So it's cool, like bringing people to that journey and just working one-on-one with them and helping change their mind. And
you're giving them a voice. I mean, you're truly saying like, look, you have a voice and what you say matters. And I think 100%. I've talked about this so much on my show, is just like everybody has a voice and everybody has a space and they matter. And, it's like people say to me, like, how do you know what to put up there? How do you know what to say? And one of my favorite things about you is you're one of your threads throughout what you say is like, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And like, it's not about how many likes and how many followers, like and you get tons of interaction and engagement, and it's amazing. But I truly feel that you're authentic, as am I, when it comes to like, if I impact one person, I am so happy. I'm not looking at the amount of likes or the amount of, it's like, if I'm putting out something that somebody can grasp onto and impact, I'm like doing my job. That's how I feel.
100%. Well, I think you just got to look at like where the journey of where things started. It wasn't like I started out going, man, I want to get all this engagement. I mean, there's always there's fine lines, right? So it's like, is it cool to look at a post and go, wow, it's got views? Yeah, of course it is. But at the same time, there was like months where it was like, I basically could have just been reading it myself. Like I got zero engagement. But the thing was, it still like made a positive impact, like in my own interactions in life. And so that's when people freak out about the algorithm and they freak out about these things. It's like, if you understand, like sometimes I'll just connect with one person offline, and those conversations are so powerful and so impactful that the algorithm dies and I get, 10 likes and 2 comments. If one of those comments turns into a conversation offline and I make a real connection, then that's a huge ROI for me. And I think that's the part that like people don't see, and they don't see like, I mean, I've had thousands of conversations at this point, like real conversations. And I literally view it like, if I went to I was really bad at networking, like networking events, because I would always feel this threat. Someone cursed me and they said, you got to come back with at least 2 business cards. And it was like,
like in your head.
Yeah. Instead of like, they just been like, hey, just have 2 good conversations. If they just had 2 conversations, I would have been like the networking king in my life.
You put that pressure on yourself to get those business cards, and it didn't even mean anything.
Exactly. And then it was like, so what do you do?
Yeah. I don't know. What do you do?
And now I think with LinkedIn, it's just like, it's cool because it's like the conversations are like, it goes from like, what did you do to like, who are you? And then you start talking about like, who do you want to be? And then, I was just talking to one of the people who really inspired me. I was just talking to him on the phone maybe like an hour ago. And that's Mark Metry. And Mark Metry was one of the people who just like, young guy, just connecting with like billionaires and like having these conversations on his podcast. I remember listening to that and just being so inspired. And now we're like talking a year on, and it's like, we know each other, we got a relationship. And I said, you know what, man, like, he was like, what can I do for you? You know, that's what he said, how we ended the call. He's like, what can I do for you? And I was like, honestly, man, I was like, you've inspired me enough to like make me believe in myself. And that's where I think he was like, it's the butterfly effect, right? Like you impact one person, they impact a bunch of other people. And I think that's the power that we don't see. So even on a micro level, I tell people, don't focus on likes. I'm not here to like help you increase your following. I'm here to just help you understand how you can use content to make real connections, which will lead to referrals. It will lead to new business, but most of all, like it will lead to like new real connections, which is, it's what it's all about.
So I remember talking to you, like you have a completely different, in the past 6 months, you have done like a major transformation. I don't know if I don't mean to step over any lines by saying that, but you've like completely like come into your own and had this transformation. And for anyone listening, we don't know each other that well. So I don't know. I'm just grasping this from like having spoken to you 6 or 8 months ago and making that connection. And then now I just can see this unbelievable growth in you of just finding your self-worth and your value and what you bring to the table. And it's created this new company and all this new stuff that you're doing. And it's just really cool to see. So it's really,
that's definitely, I think it's still so funny because it's definitely like the last six to 8 months. Like, I mean, one of the things, like, again, working at this company, I worked at Titus for like 5 years, and it was a great company, and there's no doubt. And it like very entrepreneurial. And so they kind of put this entrepreneurial seed in me. But I think over the last 6 to 8 months, there has been a change. It's been a change in mind shift. And, you know, probably about 6 months ago, that's when my engagement started going up. And I was a point where it was like, I like that, you know, I was like, oh yeah, this is what it's about. But I think like in the past 6 to 8 months and just having a lot of conversations with people who are going through things with COVID or just going through challenging times, you have enough of those conversations. And, you know, I just take time out of my day to have a conversation with someone, and neither of us would have like a motive of business or like trying to get a sale.
Just talk.
And I think that's where like now I see the power in that. And it was like business came from those conversations, but it was, I told someone about it today. It's like like when people talk about warm leads, for me, it's conversations are warm leads. And if you actually take the time to have those conversations, you will start to see things grow. Right. So yeah, that's where the mind shift has happened. And, you know, it's like
a beautiful thing. It's really nice to see sort of you finding like your best self. Mike Paterano and I always talk about it. You know, we do pop-up lives and things all the time. And we always talk about finding your true, most authentic, best self and presenting that to the world. And that's a difficult thing to do. It is but once you do it, which you're doing right now, and you're evidence of that, it just goes to show you what it can bring you.
100%. And it's, hey, I can say like, I know for a long time, I just lived in fear. And I think that, again, like, who knows, you know, like headhunter media could fall on its face, right? And it could just completely tank. But that's okay with me as well, because another thing that happened was just like breaking through this fear. So while I'm living in like a world right now where like a lot of people are fearful, there's unknowns and uncertainty, just realizing like I'm at the most uncertain point in my life. Like I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, but it's like I'm embracing that. And I think, you know, that's what's changed. It's like I'm not trying to live in like the fear and worrying about things, and just going, hey, I'm learning right now. I've learned so much in the last month, and it's okay if I do this for a period of time, and then what's the worst that's going to happen? I'll go get a job. You know,
what you're doing is allowing. You're actually just allowing. That's my word of 2020. And this was my word before COVID, which I've really learned now what allowing is after everything that's happened. But you're actually you're like relinquishing your control and just saying, you know what will be, will be. That doesn't mean you don't care about your future. Of course you do. And it doesn't mean you're not putting things in the right, you know, taking the right steps towards what your passion and your purpose-driven life. Of course you are. But there are certain things, most things are out of our control, and you overcome that fear, and that's incredible.
Yeah, no, I love, well, and I think it comes back to like, it's the community that we have on LinkedIn. And it's like, it's just, I don't know. It's just funny. I saw Chantel on your show the other day. It's like, I remember meeting Chantel, and just like, there's certain people like you meet, and they're like, you see them online and you can just think, okay, it's just like a person online. But then when you meet them, you see like how genuine they are. And I think there's so many people I've connected to in a real way who are friends, that in me going out, it was like, yeah, okay, I'm going out solo. But that's the power of LinkedIn, is that community we're talking about. Because it's like, I had someone call me up today, just like, hey man, like how's stuff going? Like people checking in on me to see how it goes. And I think, like a year ago, I didn't have that. And so the thought of stepping out alone, it would be super scary. But it's like, there's people who are like, just become mentors. Like there's people that I DM with who were just, they're like mentors to me. And there's so many people like that. And I think, again, it's inspiring people to like what connection can actually do. And it's not even LinkedIn. It's like, it could be any platform. It's just that idea of like, I think LinkedIn's created that for me, but it's also just opened my mind up to, if LinkedIn goes away, I now know the power of actually connecting with people in a real way. And it's amazing. And I know you know this. I know you. I
mean, it's the best thing ever to see someone grow. And because I am too, like I have transformed in the past year, and especially in the past 6 months, and especially in the past 3 months, I've just have this, I'm like evolving into this person, this, flowers like blooming and opening. And it's unbelievable sort of what it feels like to really connect with people on that level, and just that authentic piece of connection. Jason Leibowitz always says connection over convenience. That's his like hashtag.
That guy's a legend, by the way.
He really is. He's the man.
He's I met with him, and he was just, I forget, I think I was at like my parents' house. This was a couple of weeks ago. And, he's just like one of those guys who, I don't even know how he came on my radar. I think someone liked one of his posts, and he was just like, he just like super down to earth and genuine. And
I'm like, hello, like you're so zen. How do you get to that place? He's just like, I just let go. Connection over convenience, like it's a really cool place to be. And he helped me a lot. I mean, there have been really significant LinkedIn folks that have helped me a ton. I mean, everybody knows how close Mike and I are. Like, Gabriel has helped me, and like people that I've connected to, just Jen Russman, like all of these people that I could mention have just been incredible in my life and in my journey. And it just goes to show you, like, it's real. Like these are not just Facebook people that are just, on your friend list and you're just making a comment to their picture. It's not about that. It's about real authenticity and like really making something and supporting each other. And it's really, it's, I don't mean to be like all, love fest, but it really is a lot like that. It feels really, really good to be in this part of this.
100%. And I think it's like, it's funny. I think we kind of can get into this bubble, right? On LinkedIn. This is to like anyone who's like a creator, someone who's like putting out stuff every day. It's like we get into this bubble, and it's like, it can feel like, it's like kind of competition or whatever, all these different types of things. But I think what I've realized is like, that's just because that's our like area of the world that we're in. And it's like, there's still so many people that aren't putting stuff on LinkedIn or lurking, LinkedIn lurkers. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, because sometimes like it can get overwhelming, or you can feel like, oh man, like that person's getting way more engagement. What are they doing better than me? And I think the important thing that we got to keep is that sense of like, we're all building, we put into this the content that you literally put out there is what makes the platform. And so I think I've seen like different ebbs and flows, and I've seen people come up and kind of leave. But I think the more connected you are with like the genuine people on here and the people who are authentic, the more it helps. And I always just say, like, for a lot of us, we need to step back and realize like, it's not about where Joel is today. It's not about where Annie is today, but it's like, let's have vision for like where Annie is in 10 years from now and Joel is from 10 years from now. And I think if you can keep that mindset, that long-term mindset with relationships in general, it'll make you a great recruiter, because you can treat people like where they're going and not who they are necessarily in the moment. Right. And it will also, it just makes you a better person, because then you're not just viewing people
as a transaction. It's not transactional. It's long-term. Exactly. Relationship connection, I'm not even kidding you. We're at 4:29 already. This was the fastest show of my life. Where can people find you? Anything you want to leave everybody with? Where can they find you?
I would say LinkedIn, obviously, is probably the best place. if we're not connected, just send me a personalized message just saying, hey, I saw you on Annie's show and want to connect. Because I have a lot of, just a little quick side note here. The best way to get rid of all of like the sales pitches is just max out your connection list, or just be selective with connections, and then you find a lot less. So you get a lot less of those. But yeah, just put that personal note. And then yeah, I've got a couple free guides as well. If you go to my website, headhuntermedia.com, there's a page on there where there's like a free guide on just how to start building that community on LinkedIn, 30 minutes a day. It's free. So just go in there and check that out as well. I think it could be just a good resource. I tell everyone, like, there's no growth hacks. There's none of this. It's just how much you're investing into the relationships, how big your community is. They'll lead to engagement. It'll lead to all different things. But it's hard work, it's consistency, and it's showing up every day.
You got to put the time in and come from your heart and be your best self. Live with Annietude. I mean, that's the thing.
That's right.
Do it.
100%. Love it.
Joel, I loved having you. This was so super fun. I can't wait to do more together. And I appreciate it. I'm very grateful that you came on today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. It was super fun. And 31 minutes. That's how I knew it was going to go fast.
Stay right there. I'm going to talk to you for just 1 second. I'm ending the broadcast, but this is my outro. Ready? Bye.